Okay, so we are going to start today with something a little bit different. I am Michele Allman, and this is...
I am Alex Allman.
All right, so typically I do a weekly vlog, and so we are trying something different today. We're going to start our new podcast, and our new podcast is called The Red Notebook, okay? And so why are we doing this? Why are we doing something different? And I have to admit, it's a little bit awkward looking at ourselves like this.
It is, just a little bit.
It just feels weird. But, so we're doing The Red Notebook because Alex here is my oldest daughter, and she has come on and is going to start working with the company. I am second generation. My folks founded our company, and so we were sitting here thinking, and we have remarkable conversations about all kinds of things, and thought, well, what the heck? Let's just put it on film and let's just talk about it. So here's the deal. We are going to talk today about a variety of things. It's just going to be conversation. And the whole podcast, The Red Notebook, is going to be about family, faith, and business. As small business owners, there's all kinds of crazy things that happen. We have tons of stories. So we're going to get used to it, get into our rhythm, get comfortable with it. Hopefully we can share some cool insights and you walk away with some added value, because that's what this is all about. So we'll start with this. Going to talk a little bit about like growing up and, family, the family dynamic. One of the things I think that we've talked about so much together as mom and daughter is like what the impact a parent has on a child, and that whole process of, the truth being that a child's not born with a manual, right?
Yeah.
We learn how to use this thing, we learn how to use a computer, all this other stuff, which I'm still challenged with, by the way, but we don't learn necessarily how to raise our kids. So it's something you have to kind of navigate. And the thing that is so crazy about parenting is that because there's no manual, because there's no like guidance system, you have to figure it out. So you're either going to go to people that you trust, your parents are going to provide insight, you're going to talk to your friends, you're going to, there's all kinds of different resources that are out there, but we don't know where to start. So I'm going to just share a little bit about what I did, and then I want to talk to you about what your own experiences growing up have been, and then we can kind of segue into what you've seen going through school as going through college, what you majored in, what you've been exposed to, and some of your insights around that.
Yeah.
So to share a little background, my husband and I got married at 20... This is sad.
26, because 26. You had me at 27.
Right, okay. So we got married at 26. Pretty young in today's standards. My husband's a firefighter. So we got married at 26. Mm-hmm. We had you by the time we were 27. So
1 year later.
1 year later. So right under the... Yeah. Yes, it was on the honeymoon, okay?
Didn't give you much time to yourselves.
But that's okay. We went from married to married with children immediately, and that was what God intended for us, because we knew we wanted kids, never really planned anything, and that was the path, that was the fate. And I was scared shitless, I'll be honest with you, because you don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
Well, no one's ever ready for that.
No, you have no idea, because you go from doing your thing to having this little life in your hands, and it's pretty intense. And of course, being pregnant for me was no problem. I was lucky.
Maybe not afterwards, because I made your life.
You were
double hockey sticks for the first year, maybe.
For sure. But the thing that I went with instinct, and my instinct was, I read. So what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to learn about parenting? And I just read. And at the time, it's crazy too, to totally tangent for 2 seconds, is that, the way technology is advanced back then, 90s, this was 95.
Yep.
You were born.
Mm-hmm.
The internet was there, yes, but it wasn't like that's where you innately went. I mean, honestly, I didn't have a car. I didn't have a cell phone until Dad and I were engaged, and even then it was a phone that literally had a curly cord. It was like having a trim line in your car. You had to drop your car off. They'd install it. For anybody, in your 50s, hallelujah, holla. You had to, get your phone installed. You had to leave your car.
I can't imagine that.
It was crazy.
Isn't that weird that I can't imagine that either?
No, you can't. You can barely remember audio tapes. Like cassette tapes.
My car doesn't even have a CD player. The car I just bought doesn't even have a CD player.
And pretty soon it's going to be like a chip in your brain and you're going to hear music. But, my first instinct was to go do research.
Yeah.
And so I read tons of books. And what I did, I ended up reading about brain development and brain growth and neuroscience and all that kind of stuff because it was like, there's got to be some science to this. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
Right? But not every parent necessarily does that. I mean, sometimes you're like, well, this is what my parents did and we default to that.
Yeah.
And this is what I saw on TV or, I've seen other people do this in figuring out how to raise their kids. And I think for me, the key was there are certain reasons why behavior happens. There's certain things that you innately do as a mammal, right? Because we're this tribal animal, right?
Yeah,
technically. Yeah. And so there's certain things that we do that become instinct. It's like a deer does certain things with its fawn as instinct.
Yeah.
And it was intriguing to me because as babies, a human baby is so dependent in the instinctive things that a baby does and the reasons that babies do certain things was intriguing. It was a curiosity that helped me learn how to parent. And in doing that, it made everything make sense.
Yeah.
So as we brought you home and they put you out of the hospital like super fast now, which, honestly, I have to say I hated being in the hospital because I'm like, I want to do it myself. And I hate sitting here. And
she's a control freak.
It was terrible. Hated it. Wanted to get home, but at the same sense, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where I think like right in that moment is what I think is a huge opportunity to help parents understand like what raising a child is. And it's not, there are all these weird, assumptions in how we manage things, but getting you home, you were colicky as hell.
Yeah.
And part of that I think was, it's the way the body develops. Some babies are born bigger. Yeah. You were not a big baby. You were a smaller baby.
Yeah.
And I think it has a lot to do with digestion.
Yeah.
Like I honestly and this is going to, again, tangent, and I'll let you talk in a second. I swear to God. But our health is all about your gut. Like all of your health kind of sits in here.
Yes.
And you think about it from the very beginning. Like colicky babies, a lot has to do with digestion and the intestines, and like you're experiencing pain, you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And so you just cry.
Yeah. Just scream.
And not having a clue what to do was, maddening. But in the same respect, it went really, really fast. So we'll jump ahead. So all that, like now, you're starting school and all the things that I did to figure out, like, why does this happen? Let's talk a little bit about, like, school. So I want to kind of tangent into that.
My favorite.
Yeah, because you, with the colic, you had an APCAR score. I think that's what's called, APCAR, ASPAR,
I don't even
whatever.
know what that is.
When you're born, when you have a baby, they score you skin color, like responsiveness, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you did not score well. Like, you scored low in that. And part of that...
like all my standardized testing.
Yes. Testing was not your thing. Even at birth, testing wasn't your thing.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that, now that I'm thinking back about that, when you were born, I don't know if I told you this, but they gave me, I was pushing and I said, you were coming out, and they didn't believe me, and they went to give me the epidural.
Yeah.
And because I'd gone as long as I could, and I thought, all right, this is it. But then I'm like, no, I'm pushing, and she didn't believe me. She gave it to me, and you were literally coming out.
Wow.
So I almost wonder about the connection.
That's possible, yeah, because I've heard stories about if the nurses keep the baby in too long. Because there was a situation at a hospital where a nurse actually held a baby in, and there was a lot of brain damage that happened because the baby was stuck in the canal. So I don't know. Maybe that could have something to do with it. That's interesting. But yes, I am dyslexic. So school wasn't the easiest for me.
No,
testing
not at all.
Wasn't the easiest for me. The way that people treated you in school wasn't the easiest for me. Especially in the neighborhood and the area we were from. The type of kids that were around were very high performing. The standards were very high in Naperville. Because it was such a wealthy area, the school systems had such standards that were much higher than the others. So I was kind of the kid in school that was like, what's wrong with her? You know,
Yeah.
like what's wrong with her? Why can't she read? Why does she mess up on words that she shouldn't mess up on? But you actually were like the main reason that I actually got resources in school.
Yeah, and that's, so the whole point of touching on the school thing is because I think so many kids struggle with this and so many parents struggle with what to do. And I think fundamentally when you go back to thinking about what's the big deal, right?
Yeah.
So a parent, and I will say this, like a parent oftentimes is hyper controlled, and they may not admit it, but you're hyper controlled by what everyone else thinks.
Yeah.
Like, how are you parenting? What are you doing? What does that person think? Do they think your kid's smart enough? Do they think they're cute enough? All that other BS that at the end of the day is not relevant whatsoever. Yeah. And to me, at first, and coming from a community like that, and props to these communities that have hyper competitive schools and tons of resources and lots of parents' involvement for sure. So there's total positives on that side, but on the negative is that too often parents are hung up on what everyone else thinks of them. 100%. And a lot of that comes in this, it's this group mentality. It's like being in a clique as an adult, which really kind of sucks. But the parenting groups and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of judgment. And for me, I've always been the kind of person who's like, screw that. I do not care what anyone thinks. And so for you, it was about understanding that, seeing the signs that there was struggle. And then going, you know what? My kid has a gift to give, and it doesn't matter if you're getting, you read before Johnny, SquarePants read, or if you're gonna read by the time, as long as you are producing and you are happy, and you are giving the gift that you were put on this earth to give, that's what mattered. So I think it's interesting that it starts, even as a parent.
Well, and I think a lot of parents don't realize what to do in those circumstances.
For
like
sure.
If they notice something's going wrong, where they're like, "Why is my kid not reading like the other kids are? Why does the teacher keep saying that my kid's hiding in the corner of the room and doesn't want to talk to anybody?" Because that was kind of how I was. I don't know if teachers ever said stuff like that to you, but
I can remember. I'll tell you this was one of those deciding points. You know how you make that it just clicks in your head.
Yeah.
Is that when you were at preschool, and this is back when we lived in Wheeling, that area.
Oh yeah.
When you were in preschool, and I went to pick you up, and one of the preschool teachers said, I don't think she's all that bright. She just doesn't get it. And at first, I took a step back.
You're like, wait a second.
After I controlled myself from wanting to punch her right in the face, because I thought, wow, and this is going to tangent into a whole nother conversation about words matter. And as human beings, we're so impacted by the way we filter words. So words aren't the key; it's the way we filter those words. But at first I was like, "What? Bleep." And then I'm like, "Okay, she's processing through a filter. That's cool. I don't care what she thinks.
Yeah,
it isn't about the fact that she said that. It was." Okay, I'm going to acknowledge that there's something up. Something's being noticed.
Yeah.
And so let's figure out what we need to do, to ensure that your self-esteem remained intact without it being false.
Yeah.
Without it being like this, you're going to go pro playing baseball when you really suck.
Yeah.
Right? So it was none of that. It was more of the world's going to judge, and it always will. And you have to be able to be strong enough to say, I really don't care about that judgment.
Yeah.
I know I'm good. I know I give. And I'm happy.
Well, and I think the key is telling your kid words of encouragement rather than pointing out the things that are negative. I know a lot of kids, and currently I know some kids whose parents, if they do something wrong or they're not being as involved or they're not as affluent as other kids, they're calling them stupid, or they're saying things like, why do your grades suck? Yeah. And it's like, why, instead of saying, why do your grades suck, say, what's going on? How can I help you?
Right.
What things can we work on? What are you struggling with? Like with you always told me that I was doing things well, or you would always point out the good things that I was doing rather than like, well, Alex is writing her 5s and 4s backwards. What the heck is going on with that?
Right.
You know, or like she's not reading at the same level as everybody else. So what the heck is wrong with you? It was more like, we're going to point out all the good things and we're going to work on the bad things as they come.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think that the hard part about school, and you could probably talk to this a little bit, is that school doesn't set kids up, and no diss to teachers, because man, do you have a big load on your plate. But school doesn't set kids up for success in any way, shape, or form. Mm-mm. What it sets you up is to follow the rules, to listen. Yep. And those aren't bad skill sets. It's just that the truth is that every soul is unique, and you come with a unique set of gifts. And those aren't always appreciated in that environment for everybody. Some kids can sit in a class and not fidget, not mess around, and not have energy that they can't control. Yeah. And they can follow the rules, and they can take a test, and they can execute and just, go through the day that way. And other kids can't. Yeah.
Well, and I remember you used to tell me, let's look at the things you can get from school. Mm-hmm. So what you're getting from school is discipline. Mm-hmm. You're able to sit through it 8 hours a day, do your homework, all that. It wasn't necessarily what are you learning from history class. Right. It's what are you taking away from the experience of being in history class. Same with college. Because I chose a major that I wasn't very interested in, and I realized that too late in the game. Mm-hmm. So instead of thinking like I'm wasting this degree, I was thinking, what am I going to get from this? What am I going to take away other than I'm learning about this subject? Yeah. And so the interaction with people, how I deal with my teachers, because man, if I had a lot of different types of teachers. And it taught me like how to manage the relationship. That was a big thing that you taught me in school. When I would start to slip in grades, you're like, let's manage the relationship with the teacher. How can we build a relationship where they're going to help you now, or they're going to see something in you that, they can take away. So that was important.
And I think that that's something that hopefully becomes a life skill that apply, because in everything that we do, right? It's about managing the relationship. And this is what's so interesting to me about all that is it's about the energies that people give off and what you're drawn to and what kind of pushes you away. Like you ever walk into a room and you're like, oh man, I'm drawn to that person. I can just feel like our energies sync up like magnets. Yes. And then there's people that you walk in a room, you're like, I cannot move quickly enough to get away from this person. And it may be like, this is weird. Yeah. You sense it, right? Yes. And it's super interesting when you're, especially as a kid, as you're navigating that, and you're in an environment where you go into school and you're following rules and there's authority. And again, there's purpose in that we live in a society and there's rules and authority, and that you have to respect. So you're learning the process of respect. But one of the things I think, maybe you remember this, maybe you don't, but we talked about teachers can be wrong. Yeah. 100%. Parents can be wrong. Mm-hmm. Like we can straight up be wrong. There are parents that are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, right? Yeah. There are adults out there that are just wrong, and it's okay as a child to be conscious of it
and to question
it. And this is the interesting thing, and it's interesting about like how much things have changed in society, right? And how technology has its good and its bad. There's good and bad to everything. And how technology on the good side for kids like you that struggling to follow the process of the educational system as it is, right? The structure of that. And technology is giving kids the freedom to explore talents and skills and information and things that they're passionate about.
At a very early age.
Very early age. That don't fall within the norm. Yeah.
Well, like the other day I saw a YouTube video. It's an 11-year-old girl who's dropped out of school. She owns a company now. And what her parents did was, instead of saying, no, you need to stay in school, they saw she was working for it. Yeah. She created a company out of $10. Yeah. And she's 11 years old.
It's amazing.
And her family's like, why are we going to keep her in conventional school when she's literally created a company on her phone? Yeah. So they took her out of school, and now I think in the first year she made $200,000.
It's insane, and that is like an innate gift. And so what's so cool about that, what psychs me up about the next generations is that the fact that there are kids out there that are killing it because they have the ambition, they have the interest, the passion, and they're allowed the freedom to explore it.
Well, and I think that's another thing with parents. Some parents don't understand that they have to allow their kids to express themselves. Like if your kid comes to you and tells you something about their interest or things that they're struggling with the conventional way of doing things, you can't just brush it off and say, well, just deal with it. We'll figure it out. You got to look at what they're strong at and what they're interested in and think like maybe this could be something that they could carry on. Obviously not everyone's going to drop out of school at the age of 11.
No, but certainly don't recommend that. But
yeah, you got to listen to your kids when they tell you those things. I think some parents struggle with just listening.
Right. And I also think, this is something too with parents that we want what's best for our kids. I think a lot of what's right and wrong in the world is based in intent. Right? Yeah. And I think that when you really take a step back and you look at like what people do, why they do it, and what was the intent. When intent is pure and from the heart and with goodness, then you can make mistakes, but the intent is right. When the intent is wrong, and a good example would be, the intent in complimenting your child when maybe they aren't that great at something is because you deeply with your soul cherish their existence in its purity. Like there is no I love you because you did XYZ, but you truly cherish their existence. Versus a parent that their intent is because they're trying to get their kid to do something that they want as opposed to what is intended for that child. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes sense a lot.
And I think I would say too, like if I were giving advice to young parents right now, I would say that the most important thing you can do is check your intent and know that and get very clear in your heart and your head about the fact that that child is not yours. It's not an accessory to your life. A child is a gift that is to be let go. It's not yours to hold on to forever.
Well, and you know what that reminds me of is that line that some parents say, I'm your mom, I brought you in this world, I can bring you out of it. Not once in my life have you said something like that to me. You've also never said, you're doing it because I'm the mom and you're the child. I absolutely hate that line more than anything. While I understand that you should respect your parents, respect is earned. It's not given. Just because you're a parent doesn't mean that your kid is going to innately respect you. If you're constantly disrespecting your kid, what do you think your kid's going to do? Disrespect you. Or if they see every relationship you're in is disrespectful, the communication is just constant yelling, screaming, tones of anger, what do you think you're going to get back? So it's hard when parents try to point at their kid and say, just do it because I'm the mom. Well, you're not teaching them anything. All you're teaching them is, okay, well, I guess I have to listen to her even though this sounds ridiculous. I have to listen because she's the mom, I guess.
And that's such a good point because it's that balance between discipline, respect for adults, and then the balance of, cherishing your child, allowing for that curiosity, that exploration, that energy. And I think that you can manage those things through conversation. And I think one of the things that we did that was awesome is if you guys started to misbehave, which every kid does, let's face it, that's part of your job. Is, picture when you're a kid, you're sitting in an envelope, right? And you're pushing out on those sides because you need to feel it.
Well, you're experimenting.
You need to feel it.
Like, what is mom going to do if I do this?
I mean, and look at hugs. Why do hugs work? Why do hugs calm a child down? Because you're containing, it's same thing with those thunder blanket things for dogs. The whole point is you're feeling the pressure of the love that surrounds you, right? So with that, I think that kids innately push up against it because they need to feel it. They need to feel the sides of the family unit. They need to feel the construct of it, but in a certain, it's how it's managed. And so like with you guys, when naturally, start to explore, put your hand in a stove. I mean, that's a good example. It was our ability, our brains, and this is where the study of like brain growth and neuroscience and that kind of stuff made a difference. It's that in order for you to learn and experience and grow, our brain builds in filters like that, right? You have to experience it. And then in order for you to think, the human brain cannot leave a question unanswered. It can't. Right? So when, as a child, you would do something and I would pose a question to you, even before you could speak, it forced you to stop. Like you can't not stop. experiment with this. Try it. I'm telling you.
Well, and another thing you guys would do is there was no hitting in our house, which not to say that in all cases a spank isn't necessary, because I'm sure there are some cases we didn't really push the envelope that much. But what you would do instead of a spank or like a long time out, you'd have us go to our room for a second, chill out. Then you'd come upstairs and we'd sit down and discuss.
Yeah.
We discussed what happened. It wasn't like, you're wrong.
Right.
Don't do that. It was
Right.
like, here's why this is going to affect you.
Yes.
Here's what this is going to do. You have to think about the repercussions of your actions. Like whenever I would fight with my little brother, because that happened a lot, we would sit down and you would say, how do you think this is going to affect your relationship? What is this affecting with you guys? Rather than saying, stop doing that.
Yes.
You're wrong.
Or we would do things like, and it wasn't that you didn't get disciplined. I'd put you in your room.
Yeah,
Or there
yeah.
would be, and there were times where I'd have to hold the door shut. You'd be throwing a straight up tantrum. And we would do the, when you're relaxed, when you're ready to talk,
Yeah.
the door gets open.
Well, yeah, you would let us let the energy out,
Yeah.
and then we'd have the conversation.
Or-
But there was no, I don't remember specifically, because a lot of my friends have very extensive histories of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to myself, I'm like, I don't really remember getting in trouble that much. Like, I don't remember the feeling of like,
Fear.
yeah, there was no fear.
That
I mean,
nervous,
maybe when I was
uncomfortable feeling.
younger, when Dad would stomp in the room, there was
Yeah.
like the slightest bit of fear, but I never feared my dad. It was like, oh crap, I just made Dad upset. Like, I really don't want to make my dad upset. I think all of us, all three of us, we were very triggered by you guys being disappointed in us. It would really upset us, especially Adam.
Yeah.
It would
Very
really
much
upset
so.
us to the core. Like, we're like, oh my gosh, we just made our parents upset.
Well, and I think with that is goes back to your point about earned
Yeah.
respect. And it was part of it was that for you, when you would naturally start to misbehave, the question would be posed.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, and I know this is funny because Adam and Sam like do the eye roll thing, but it's like, is that a good idea or not a good idea? And we would implement it's something called I Can Problem Solve. It's a technique that's used in schools all the time. It's ICPS. And there would be certain words that would be the trigger to the thought, right?
Yeah.
And it would make you stop and you'd think about what you were doing. And inevitably, you knew, like,
Yeah.
there was always a consequence. It had to be angry.
No.
It didn't have to be mean. It didn't have to be scary, but
No.
it was a consequence.
Yeah.
And you knew it. And so when we would address those things, I'd pose a question, you knew, well,
Yeah.
all right. Yeah,
Well, and
I guess
also-
that's not a good idea.
From the beginning, you guys had made it clear. Like my dad, there's no second chance. With Dad, there's one chance. She's a little bit more lenient with that stuff, but with my dad, it was, I give you one chance, and then the repercussion happens. And it was never a hit. It was never anything like that. It was, you left your toy in the yard. I'm going to tell you one time to pick it up. If it hasn't been picked up, I'm not going to talk about it again, but I'm going to throw that toy away, and you're never going to see it. And
Yep.
it took a couple times, and once we figured out that he was serious, we were like, okay.
And it doesn't take more than a couple
No.
times.
And then we
Yeah.
were like, okay, we keep seeing that the toy go to the garbage. I don't want to get my toys thrown away.
Yep.
So now when Dad tells me to pick it up, okay, I'm going to go pick it up right now.
And for the record, the toys got donated.
Yeah. Well, to us, it was thrown away
Yes.
because we didn't know where it was going. But yeah, it was a one chance and one chance only for him. And for you, it was more like the discussion would start with, what do you think is going to
Yeah.
happen from that?
Yeah.
And we did know right away.
Well, and I think there was a couple times too, and this was actually kind of fun. I liked planning this. There were a few times, and you more than actually Sam and Adam.
I was very emotional as a
Yeah,
child.
you were very emotional, and we talked about being affected,
Yes.
versus being what was the word that we used to use? That you were sensitive. So
Yeah.
it was we discussed that sensitivity is a good thing.
Yes.
It's being affected by everything that you have to control your emotion.
That
a
was
little
a
bit.
difficult
You
task to
don't
face.
have to cry over everything.
Yes.
You don't have to be affected by everybody. And we talked about how to navigate through that. But we would go. I can distinctly remember going into a Hallmark store, and you started to throw a tantrum, and periodically. It wasn't
Yeah.
all the time. And there was absolutely, that was not going to happen. I was not going to be that parent that every other parent was looking at. And this isn't about like worrying about other people's judgment. It's about respect for other people and the
Yeah.
environment. And as a parent, Like, your kid's throwing a fit, don't take them into a restaurant like that.
When you have to teach your kid this is not acceptable behavior, because it's going to carry on until they're like in their teens, and now you got a teenager yelling at you in Chili's.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen, right? So you were throwing it, like, laying on the ground, full on fit, and I just scooped you up, football hold, and I did that, it'd be the football hold, and we walked out the store. And it didn't matter that I had stuff to do, and yes, that is a pain in the butt. Like, there were a couple times, even in grocery stores, where you got half a cart full, you got a list of stuff you really need to get in and out.
And you got to walk out.
And it was not happening.
Yeah.
And we walked out. Now, you can plan in advance for that. There were ways to do that, where making sure your kid knows you're not getting what you want because you're throwing a fit. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah. We learned really fast, because, like, as weird as it sounds, being a kid going to the store is like a fun thing sometimes for you, because you're leaving the house, you're getting to see things. And if we didn't want to go and she made us go, we're like, okay, maybe we should behave a little bit better.
Let's see how this works out.
Now, I as I got older, I can say I probably didn't throw as many tantrums in public because I was too nervous about the way people looked at me.
Yeah, well, and maybe that's where being affected was a little helpful. But I think that, as a parent, it kind of going back a little bit to the beginning of what we were talking about, is that intent really does matter.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think kind of to now segue into the whole thing about school and teachers. And again, this is I get it. Like, I get how tough that can be. And especially today, where you have like this weird combination of kids that are a lot more mature, right, than we were kids for a long time. Like, I was a kid until I was like 16, because you didn't have access to all this information. So you got kids that are far more mature, that haven't necessarily been modeling or seeing respect for other people. They're seeing too much disrespect. So you got that. You got parents that are seriously, and I've seen it. And I'm sorry, but there are a lot of parents that are just jerks. Oh, yeah. That's straight up jerks. Oh, yeah. Now, there's a ton of great parents, too, but...
probably more great than bad.
And I'll probably get kickback on this. I really don't care, because you know what? You need to hear it. And that is, when you go into an environment and you do not accept and take responsibility as you are the number one teacher in your child's life. Yes. And you have not modeled that behavior, and you have not earned that respect, then when you put them in school and you expect that teacher to figure it out, shame on you.
That happens a lot now, too. Yeah. Because I know some kids that actually graduated with me that are teachers now, and they post all the time about the difficulties of when a parent drops their kid off at school expecting the teacher to be the parent. Yeah. You can't do that.
No, you absolutely can't. It's unreasonable.
Especially when some of the teachers are 25-year-olds, 26-year-olds. They've never had a kid. They just know how to teach the curriculum. Yep. They're not there to discipline to the severity that a parent should, or they're not there to teach the kid lessons on life itself. They're there to teach a lesson on history. Yeah. Now, they do play a big role, so there are teachers that go above and beyond, but for the pay that they make, they should not have to be the parent.
No, it's difficult. So now you got a combination of a world that the current school system doesn't set kids up for success. You got that challenge. You got all kinds of other crapola that happens in the bureaucracies of being, and I can't even imagine, don't want to know. Although as a parent, you have to get involved and you have to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. And then you've got parents that some are great, some are throwing their kids in there and don't care. So you got a combination of the parent that's disconnected and doesn't care, and then you've got the parent that's a helicopter parent, and you're like, please back off. So it's a really tough to navigate. And I think that, the good news is that, one, technology has given opportunities to kids to explore passions, to do things. And there's all kinds of new school systems that are out there. There's online schools, public schools, homeschooling. There's all kinds of different opportunities there. But I also think that it's pretty awesome that we're now talking again about, and now I'm totally tangenting, but trades. The fact that trades are coming back, trade schools. My husband's a carpenter and a firefighter, didn't go to college. That was not his thing, and that's okay. And he's wildly successful, incredibly brilliant.
There's a lot of pressure on kids to go to school, like a 4-year college. Like when I went to school in Naperville, that was spoken to us since 5th grade. Yeah. In 5th grade, they were already saying, well, your grades in junior high are going to affect your grades in high school, and that's going to affect your ability to get into college. Yeah. And none of us even thought about anything else but college. Now, where my fiance's from, they never spoke a word about college.
Right.
Basically, the teachers were happy if the kids even passed senior year.
Or showed up.
So he had a totally different experience than I did. I mean, he had to put himself through all of it. Props to him. Lots of debt for that.
Yeah.
But he had to put himself through all of it. And for him, it was a good thing because he had to get away from the environment he was in. But for me, sometimes I think to myself, like, did I need college? Because the stuff that I've done after school is nothing that would have required a 4-year degree. Nothing.
No, and I think that's where it's like we want to be careful not to take away the importance for so many people.
Yeah.
But then not have that be the end all be all to success. It isn't. I'm a college dropout.
Well, and there's a lot of kids that base their self-esteem on that.
Yes.
Like there's some kids that didn't get into the school they wanted and it's completely crushed them.
Yeah.
Like totally destroyed their self-esteem when it shouldn't matter.
No, it really shouldn't. I think that it's about knowing yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So for you, I think whereas college was worth the time.
Oh yeah, it was worth the experience. Really about,
you know, for a lot of people, it's college is way too expensive. Let's face it, it's just insane. But for you, the time, you're investing a lot of time, right? And that's time you can't get back. Mm-hmm. For you, it was the overcoming everything that you were afraid of or navigating a difficult situation. Yeah. It was not about the class itself or the actual knowledge you walked away from. Yeah. The knowledge was in the wisdom you gained and the relationships you made. Yeah. And it really kind of goes back to that. Fundamentally, I think that that's key. Now, having said that, if you were somebody who's so massively introverted, but you're so like about science or about math, and you're just like you become this incredible programmer, and you have to have that environment where you're learning the literal steps or whatever.
No, for sure.
Then 100%.
Well, and college is a great thing. It is. But in nowadays world with technology and these cell phones and like the iPad we're filming on, there's so much potential there.
Well, and by the way, just another side note, like so annoying that I'm finding as I'm aging, my brain, it's the things like, you know, the computer, this stuff, like, you know, you guys, and even the generations like Adam that, you know, just graduated high school generation, it's like innately you figure out how to make this stuff work. It's like, what are you born? It's like osmosis.
Well, and the kids now that are being born, think about it. They're literally being born with technology.
Computers in their brain, like chips.
Well, and like, I don't know if you've ever seen on an airplane, but there's like a 2-year-old holding an iPad.
Oh, yeah.
And they're tapping on the screen. Right. They know how to work everything. Like, they're being born with it. For me, I was born in the mid-90s, so I got lucky that I got to experience that chunk of time where you had to find the bikes at your friend's house to figure out where everyone was at.
Oh, yeah.
My fiance's brothers, who are 10 years younger than us, have no idea. When we said that to them, they said, "That's how you found your friends?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we walked around the neighborhood to see where the bikes were at."
I remembered, and you forget. Like that was your way of knowing where everyone was hanging.
Or
it was where
you had to call the home
were.
phone. That was my first test of my anxiety. Was my mom would make me answer the home phone, and I'd have to say, "I'm in residence." Or like when you called your friend's house and say, "Can Olivia play?" That was my friend when I was really young. And that gave me so much anxiety because I was so shy as a kid. But kids don't know how to do that anymore. They just text on their phone or they have the Snapchat. And they don't even, like when Adam and his friends would hang out, sometimes I'd go down in the basement and they're sitting in a circle on their phones. And I was like, "What are you guys doing? It's summertime. Get outside." Yeah. But it's kind of cool because a lot of those kids will then take that cell phone and turn it into a career.
And this is the thing. This is now we can talk about that a little bit because
we've totally gone on tangents, but that's the point of this
that's
stuff,
the whole
you know.
Point. So this is a little rough, you know. But and we're sort of talking to the camera and we're talking to each other.
It's our first go around. We'll get better as time goes on.
But I think that is like, where is everything going now? So the skill set of one, physically moving your body, getting up off the couch, going outside, walking around, trying to find your friends, and that was how we grew up. Like you knew. That's where everyone was hanging where all the bikes were. Yep. And then you just go knock on the door. And then, you know, you'd play hide and go seek. And, you know, the cruelty back then, cyberbullying then, was when you play hide and go seek and you never went and found the guy that everyone thought was a dork, right? Yeah. Like that was and you figured all that stuff out, right? Now, it's crazy because it's the pull and the push of, you know, this is where it is. The train's left the station, right? Yeah. Like, AI, all that stuff, everything that's going on right now. The train's left the station. It's where society is. And so to hold your kids back from it is not necessarily a good thing, because they're not going to be they won't be competitive. Like and you can't.
Yeah.
Like, you can't wrap a kid up in bubble wrap and
No.
not allow them, unless you're Amish and you're like somewhere where there's
Yeah.
no exposure to it.
Yes.
But you can't hyper protect them. But in the same respect, like, to lose that, to forget what it was like to get up and go find your friends because their bikes are sitting outside. The fact that most kids don't even ride their bikes anymore.
Well, and some parents, I think, use this technology as a crutch.
True. That's true. Yeah, it's like a babysitter.
Yeah, like, I think if we had more parents that were encouraging their kids to get on their bikes, it'd be a different story. But now the kid cries and they're like, okay, here's my iPhone.
Yeah.
Play a video. I can't even tell you how many times I've gone to the airport and I'm like, I have never seen so many children holding an iPad.
Phones.
Like, you could tell they have their own cell phone too, because it's like a child case on it. And you're like, wow, I remember my first cell phone was a pay-as-you-go, and I had 120 characters a month.
Yeah.
120 a month. That's
Firefly.
less than a tweet per month.
The Firefly.
That's literally less than a tweet per month. And all I could do was say hi.
Yeah.
And like, if my friend kept texting me, I'm like, I don't have any characters left. You know, like, we used it
that's
just to call you, to tell you if we were,
if
you know,
were safe.
Or like when you were on a trip, it was just for the fact that you needed to be able to contact us. It wasn't like you had the internet on it, or you could play games on it.
It's just crazy, because then, you know, some of those kids that are exposed at such an early age are going to go on and be like massively successful.
Oh, I know.
But having said that, there are so many factors that lead up to that success, right?
Yeah.
There's so many things. Like, if you know, there's the 1 in a million kid that's going to have the technology given to them and have all these other bad things happen. Like, maybe it's the parent intent there was to babysit.
Yeah.
And so it's just get out of my face. And so they're being raised by technology.
Uh-huh.
And they're the 1 in a million kid that was built with a soul that fed itself.
Yeah.
Right? Which is so rare.
Very rare.
And they go on to be successful. And then there's going to be 1,000 examples of kids in those same situations that become total losers.
Yeah,
Because
or
they, you know,
they go into depressions or whatever because they're not getting human connection.
So where is that? It's like, there's no perfect answer to it. There's no right or wrong answer to it either. And so,
well, and I think, again, a lot of it falls back on parenting.
and intent.
Because as the parent, you're the one who's responsible for taking that away when needed, or encouraging your kid to do things that are active. Like for Adam, for example, he's had a phone for a long time. I mean, smartphones have been around since he was pretty young. So he was put in sports. He was, I mean, his friends group is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because they're a little more like the outdoorsy kind. They like to fish and hunt and all that.
And athletic.
But you wouldn't have let him. Like, even if he wasn't playing sports, you wouldn't have let him spend his entire day sitting on his phone or on a computer or on the PlayStation or whatever it is. You would have encouraged him to get outside. We would have done family activities outside. Yeah. And that's another thing. We were also a pretty active family.
Right.
Although I'm probably the least athletic of us all. But we were all very active. Every vacation we went on, there was a walk, or there was like a bike ride or something like that. So I think that was another thing. It all falls back to parenting.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, a kid becomes who they are because of the type of parenting. Now, the only other thing I'll say is, if you have really crappy parents, which, let's be honest, there's some people out there that have very crappy parents, they have to either find it within themselves, which is like my fiance. I don't know how he's done this with his life, but he's found it within himself to determine, I will not be anything like this.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the exact opposite of this.
Yeah.
And the thing that I tell him all the time is, don't be sad if your relationship with your family isn't the best. Think about the future. You get to determine how your family's going to be. Everything you didn't get to experience in life, you now get to set for your kids.
Yeah.
All the terrible things that you had to face, or the things that you had to hear in your life, you now get to determine how your kids are going to be raised. So don't let that, and I say that to his brothers too, don't allow your current circumstance to determine how the future is going to go. Realistically, it's a very short period of time that you're forced to stay with your family.
Yeah.
If you have a family that's abusive or mentally draining, or you're feeling depressed because of the type of environment you're in, you're only obligated to stay there till you're 18 years old. Once you're 18, get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
Do something else. Get yourself away from it.
And that's so amazing, because like so much of our core and how we define ourselves is based in the way that we were treated by our parents.
Yeah.
And no matter what you do, and I speak, you know, in knowing that we talk about words, and, you know, words are just words. until intent and meaning is
Yep.
put behind the word and from whom that word is delivered.
Yes.
Right? So words are letters put together that we put a meaning to. But when somebody who you're desperately looking for,
Yeah.
and as a child, that's a natural
Not even just a
connection.
child. When you go into adulthood, like people who haven't spoken to their parents in a while, they're still craving that.
Yeah.
They still want their parent to reach out. All they want is for that parent to try.
Yeah.
Like if they don't have a relationship with them, the kid doesn't want to be the person that tries, because I'm the kid. You should want to be in my life.
Yeah.
You're my mom. You should want to be here. That's what they think.
That is probably, I would say, and I'm going to throw it out there. Not everyone would agree with this, but I would say that's fundamentally the core
Heck yeah.
source of trouble in society.
Yeah.
It starts there, and no matter how many ways we rationalize, it starts there.
Yeah.
When a child enters into adulthood and is still craving and it's a tough one because so many people have overcome. And,
Yeah.
there's so many. The truth of the matter is, and there's a lot of people out there, and I love Gary Vaynerchuk, and I listen to him all the time, and he says this all the time. Nobody gives an F. Like, you could be struggling, and he says that with the right intent, and that means that, the world just doesn't have time to care about everyone's issues.
Yeah.
Like, we're giving people, we're empathetic, we, as a society, we are a caring group, but the truth is you got your own shit.
Well, and time doesn't stop.
No.
Time doesn't stop for a single person.
So when you really have to take a look at it and realize that, I need to figure this out. There's still something there.
Yeah.
There's always going to be that little teeny hole, and you might have filled it as much as possible.
Yeah.
And this is where I think having impact, and why we're even doing this, is having impact to share the experiences, whether you agree with them or not agree with them, whether, it's similar to yours, you take something away from it, but knowing that everyone has similar experiences at some point in time, everyone's going to feel pain, everyone's going to get their feelings hurt, but the core, and I think this is what it's about. Like, it wasn't with everything that you did that we celebrated. It was everything that made you that we celebrated. So there's going to be times when a child, and when you guys did something that we didn't like, or we didn't agree with it, and we disagree about stuff.
Yeah.
It isn't about that. It's about that everything that made you who you are.
Yeah.
And this was not our control. Some of it genetic, some of it environment,
Yeah.
a lot of it God, the soul that you were given. That's what we celebrated.
Yeah.
Like the fact you were put here, there's a reason.
Well, and it's
right?
important to give your kid confidence. You don't want to overhype your
Not
kid.
fake.
No, there's not fake stuff. But like for me, I struggled with grades. I struggled with school. That was a huge struggle. And if I got like a B on a test, some parents would be like, "That's not enough." But if I brought that to you with excitement, you're like, "Oh my gosh, yes, we got a B."
Yep.
Awesome. Like the work paid off. And I think it sucks when some kids go to their parent for that.
Yeah.
And all they get in return is, well, you could do better.
Yeah.
You should have done better.
And the intent and the hard part about that is a lot of parents do that thinking
Thinking it's the right thing.
Like that's the right thing to do, to push them to be harder, set a higher expectation. And what we did is we set expectation, but the expectation was not on performance.
Yeah.
It was on performing to the best of your ability.
Well, and we would set like for me versus Adam.
Right.
We're two different goals.
Yep.
Two different outcomes. Sam's a great example. My sister is basically a genius. She's extremely book smart. So her goals and her achievements were way different than mine. But you didn't look at us and say, well, Sam did this, so you should be
exactly
at that point. That was never the thing. You always said you guys are three different kids.
Yep.
Three completely different kids. All of us have very different mindsets and things that interest us.
And different gifts.
Yeah.
Totally different gifts.
So you never compared us. It was never like well, Sam got an A+, why are you not at an A+? It was Sam got an A+, that's great for Sam.
Yeah.
That's really awesome for Sam. A B for me is really awesome, especially on some classes.
Yeah.
It was like, let's celebrate those the same way.
And it's about like, even with sports, so Adam being the athlete, it's how much heart, and he played football, and he loved football, like love football. So he played since first grade, And he wasn't the best player on the team, but he worked so hard and played with such heart and loved the game so much. And he had impact, but he had impact on the team in different ways too. So, he did play and he did see a lot of field time and he did have great plays and he did do all that stuff, but he was not going to be the best player on the team.
Yeah.
So we never pretended like he was, but we never took away from those massive accomplishments. But we celebrated more in how good of a teammate he was, or how much the coaches could rely on him for the work ethic and modeling the behavior of working hard and caring.
Yeah.
And I think that if there's anything that a parent can give their kid in terms of building up that self-esteem, it's going back to cherishing the existence. Yeah. And it's not cherishing existence because, or I love you because, it's I just love you.
Yep.
Period. End of story. Always will.
One, I believe, because I don't know why, because I'm not a parent and I've never been a parent, so I don't know why I feel this way, but I have a very strong passion for the way that parents speak to their children and how they should speak to their children. And a lot of people would probably look at me and say, well, you're 24 years old. What do you know about that? What I know is that my parents set a fantastic example, and I've watched a lot of crappy examples. Most of my friends when I was growing up had divorced parents, trouble in their family, someone who was mentally abusive. Right now I'm currently dealing with some kids that are very close to me whose parents are just god awful when it comes to verbal and mental abuse, and I give them advice every day on how to overcome that. But I get so passionate when I hear some of the things that parents say to their kids, because I'm like, you don't understand what the impact you're doing.
Right.
You just damaged them so much with one word, with one sentence, with one thing that you said, and it's going to compound. And like one of the kids that I'm speaking with, and I don't want to give too much information on them, but he has clinical depression right now at the age of 15 years old. Mm-hmm. That is very sad.
Yeah.
And it's all because of the fact that his parents don't give him any support.
Yeah.
Any accomplishment, any success. All it's treated as is, well, you need to do better.
Yeah.
Well, there could have been something else. Well, you got lucky.
Yeah.
Oh, you got an A. Oh, you must have cheated. You got lucky. You're not smart enough to get an A. And to me, that's like the most painful thing to see, because I try to come in as like the counselor person, because that's kind of what I'm good at. And I'll be like, well, let's think of it this way. Think of how good you're going to feel when you get to make yourself feel good about your accomplishments. You look at that A and say, heck yeah, I just got an A. I don't need their approval.
Yeah.
Although in most cases, kids do really need the approval. I mean, on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first and most important block is emotional wellness.
Yeah.
So if you as a parent are not providing that emotional strength and wellness for your child, well, the rest of the pyramid doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you're providing a home and food. And that's the basics. That's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
But the main thing to develop your child to be a productive member or someone who is confident in themselves is emotional.
Yeah.
It's all
100%.
emotional.
And I think that and to wrap this up, as we're coming up on an hour, which is what we're going to try to do, is like keep it to an hour, is when a parent makes a mistake, and parents do it, and adults do it, and this is, because you have emotions yourself, and we're imperfect, and one of my favorite sayings is that we're perfectly imperfect, is that the two most powerful words that a parent can say to their child when they make a mistake is, I'm sorry.
Yep.
And it's one of those things that too often we get hung up in the pride of being the parent, or the pride of the authority, and like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to say I'm sorry because I'm still mad. You have to move beyond it.
Yep.
And you absolutely, when you know you screwed up, when you say that thing like, shut up, or whatever it is, like that word, you know it, you can see it, you can feel it.
Yeah.
You have to say, I'm sorry. I'm not perfect. I was feeling something.
Yep.
I didn't mean that. That's not how I wanted you to feel, because those two words can heal a wound super fast.
Well, and think about what you're teaching your kid.
Yeah.
Because they're going to go into the
yes.
world and they
Right.
might do something and hurt someone's
Yeah.
feelings. And if they've never heard the words "I'm sorry," what do you think they're going to do?
Yep.
Like, for example, if Dad ever like got too animated, because sometimes he'd get pretty animated, and he would see the looks in our eyes. Maybe not at first, but later on in the day, he'd come up to our room and sit us down, and with shaky voice and all, my dad's never cried really in front of us, but you could tell, and he would say, "I'm very sorry with how I made you feel. I could tell that hurt you, and I'm very sorry."
Yeah.
And every time he did that, I would look at him, and it would just be like, "Okay."
And it didn't
Feels better
undermine your respect for the authority.
No.
It didn't make you sassy.
If anything, it made me
us
respect
weak.
you guys more,
Right.
because now I feel safe. Now I
Right.
feel like, okay, my dad knows that hurt my feelings, or not necessarily hurt my feelings, but that scared me, or my dad knows that might have been too intense, and he came up, hugged me, and now my viewpoint of a man even is like, this is how you
100%.
should be treated.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very glad that you guys set that example, because a lot of kids too, like, they don't even realize how they should be treated by other people.
100%. And I think that's the last thing. Closing thoughts.
Sorry, guys.
No, this is good. One of the things that we did, and again, we're not perfect, but this is just, hopefully there's good takeaways in this, is that when Dad and I got married, the thing that we did right away is we said, let's set the ground rules. Let's just kind of lay it out there, because if you don't have that conversation, and you don't, it's one thing to talk about like how you're going to manage money or how you're going to do this or that. If you don't like the ground rules from the beginning, and how you're going to treat each other, that can really go bad. And so what we did is that we laid ground rules that was, we're not going to swear at each other. So we don't swear at each other at all.
I was going to say,
Don't
swear at each other.
Just not at each other. We don't call names. We don't hold grudges. We don't bring things up for the sake of hurting each other.
Yeah.
There's certain things. We put a whole list together, and we actually wrote out a mission statement for the family, and we did all that, which was really cool. You have to. It just sets the tone, and we've lived our lives that way. And I think it's made a big difference.
The very last point I'll make on that is one of the things I am the most thankful for in life is you never made adult problems your children's problems.
Yeah.
So if you and Dad ever had an argument, I would have never known. I've never once in my life looked at my parents and thought they've ever argued. I'm sure they have, because every couple does, but my mom and dad put that behind the door. They said, this is an adult issue. We're not going to bring this into our kids' life. And not very many parents do that, which I think is not necessarily something that is their fault, because they might not realize it. But when your kid's sitting at the counter eating dinner and you're screaming at each other, that's an example you're setting for someone. So that's something I'm extremely thankful for, is never once in my life have I ever seen them argue or seen them fight. Nothing like that.
So we're going to wrap this up.
Yep. Before I keep talking.
Yeah, we're at an hour. Thank you very much for watching this and for listening to our new podcast. This is Michele Allman and
Alex Allman.
And this is the Red Notebook, and we are going to be coming back with weekly podcasts that talk about family, faith, and business.
And if you have any ideas, send us some requests.
Please do. And, it's not perfect, but we're getting there. So thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.